Going on, guys? So this is LSU Recruiting HQ, and we have a special guest today. Obviously, you guys know LSU baseball is hosting their first regional since 2019. It's so hard to believe that it's been that long since LSU has hosted a regional. And I got my buddy Mark Garland here, who covers Oregon and Oregon State. He seems to lean on the Beavers a little bit more than the Ducks, but he is our West Coast insider out here. What is going on, Mark? How are you been?
How's it going, man? Yeah, happy to be here. Lots of stuff going on, RPI troubles already. West Coast baseball has been a sham this year as far as getting in the tournament, but happy five teams are out there, and Oregon State both happy to be in the tournament this year.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I get, I'm just a big baseball fan in general, and I caught myself on Saturday night tuning into a little Pac-12 after dark, little Arizona Oregon matchup, and I tell you what, man, Arizona, them kids can swing the stick. Like, I had a vested interest being, Jay Johnson being there, seeing, some of the kids, and I'm like, dude, we can't get some of these guys that, like, I can't think off the top of his name. The outfielder, number
Chase
five.
Davis.
Yeah, man. That kid, Carlos Gonzalez just, had a twin and told his son to have base or start playing baseball, and he plays for Arizona. The kid is unreal. But like I said, man, got to catch a little bit of that. I'm probably just like most of my viewers. We don't, us SEC folks, we kind of stick to our nature over here. I believe we have the best brand of baseball in the country, and apparently so does the NCAA committee. We're getting 8 regional host sites, and like you said, it's been actually a down year for the West Coast as far as the NCAA tournament is concerned. Usually, you're always seeing teams like Oregon State. Stanford did get a host site, but you're seeing UCLA, Oregon, not even, they're getting 2 seeds and stuff like that. These teams are been predominantly good at baseball. Arizona State, same way. Those are bubble teams. Arizona somehow found a way to sneak in there at the end and backdoor in Arizona State. That was kind of crazy. I did not expect Arizona to make it after they lost the conference tournament, but who
Yeah.
knows what the committees and the same way in basketball, like who knows what this committee's really thinking. And like you said, the RPI monster that is college baseball right now. I know everybody's been thinking about the Kansas State coach recently, and I couldn't agree with them more. It's been a crazy year. This tournament I feel like is as deep as ever. You have tremendous 2 seeds, like me and you were talking about before. Oregon State finished in the top 15 of the national rankings and majority of the polls, and that team is a 2 seed
Yeah.
heading across the coast. And then you have teams like Campbell, Tennessee, who was a preseason top 5 team. Texas A&M kind of got hot there at the end. A team like Oregon, who did win the Pac-12 and still didn't get a regional host site. So there's a lot of solid 2 seeds. Like, what kind of stuff are we going to see from not just the Baton Rouge Regional, man, but all over the country this weekend? It's going to
Well,
be crazy.
look at Wake Forest gets Maryland, who
Yeah,
won the Big Ten and was a top 15 team at the start of the season. They're also the number 1 offense in the country, and they're a 2 seed going out there to face Wake Forest. Wake Forest had to feel like they got the bad end of that stick because they get Maryland as a 2 and the Northeastern as a 3, who is number 2 in the country in ERA. So
yeah,
you're talking
right.
about the 1 and 2 country in ERA. It's a tough bracket there for Wake Forest, but some of these 2 seeds are very well-versed, good baseball teams. I think there's just a lot of talent this year in college baseball. And especially, some of these teams that are not in the SEC really had a chance to be superstar teams, but since they didn't have that RPI, they don't host, and now they're going on the road somewhere as a 2 seed. It's going to be really interesting to see how these guys do.
Yeah, I'm looking at, obviously recency bias, but a team like Iowa, I watched in the Big Ten championship game, have a little experience where they played LSU earlier and beat the brakes off LSU. The game wasn't even competitive, and they get sent to Indiana State. I'm looking at that regional thinking like, who's saying Iowa's pitching staff can't go up there and dominate and, get to a super regional? That team was very deep, and you expect a team like that has good pitching, but they could swing the sticks up there too. And like you said, with Maryland being able to swing the bat, they have the nation's leading RBI getter on the team up there. And I watched them, and like you said, man, college baseball, it's a beautiful thing because it's not so centered around that West Coast style and Southeastern Conference ACC stuff. You're seeing teams like Boston College, Indiana State. You've seen Indiana come up there a couple times. Um, you're seeing these teams out of the blue. A team like West Virginia comes to mind too.
West
As
Virginia
a
two
two,
seed.
exactly, as a two seed. They come up there, and you're starting to see the diversity, and I love that about college baseball. I really think the COVID stuff is having a lot to do with that, with these guys having older rosters. The transfer portal is helping. You can go get these guys, at the cost of nothing, to replenish your roster and get guys that maybe were looked over from like a LSU or Arkansas. And I don't want to go as far as saying like the hand-me-downs, but like a kid playing on the bench at LSU is good enough to probably play at a team like Tulane, right? Or a team like Nicholls State, and they go in there and they become stars. And maybe it was just because they weren't in the right situation. So I think the transfer portal has actually helped college baseball more than other sports that have been recently complaining about the transfer portal a lot.
Yeah, that and the
But
draft. If you look at the draft too, you talk about a 5-round draft and then a 10-round draft. It limited the guys going to the pros, and so these guys stayed around a lot longer in college. And these teams got better because they had some senior leadership and some junior guys that probably would have been gone. Now all of a sudden they're coming back, and they got these guys for an extra year with the COVID. Made a huge difference, and it's still trickling down right now. Where you still got some guys that are in their 4th, 5th year of playing college baseball, and now they're going to regionals. It's a big deal when you have that much experience.
yeah, I don't even attempt when I go and look at rosters. I don't even attempt to guess who's an actual senior and who's an actual junior, who's draft eligible, who's not. But yeah, man. All that being said, man, I want you to go ahead and take the floor and give us LSU fans something that we might not know about Oregon State. Obviously, they finished with a very strong record at 39-18. I also saw they started 1-5 in league play. So it seems like, they're playing their better baseball here towards the end of the year, even with the 0-2 in the Pac-12 tournament.
Yeah, the offense is one of those things. When you look at this offense during that middle stretch, right when the Pac-12 starts, it's cold and miserable out here, and it's rainy. Like it's 40-degree in ball. So people are like, oh, the home run ball is not there. They didn't have the doubles. Well, it's miserable out here. It's freezing cold, and it's 40 degrees and raining. So it's really hard to drive the ball. Then you see the later in the season here when it starts warming up. These kids that are used to playing all over the country, they're not all Oregon guys. We got a lot of guys from Arizona, guys from Vegas, guys from California. So when they come up here, it's a little tough for them to make that adjustment. And then when the ball starts warming up out here, all of a sudden the offense starts coming alive. And that's what you've seen here the last 6 weeks for this Oregon State team, is that offense has really caught fire. Led by Travis Bazzana, obviously the wonder from down under. He is terrific. He's from Australia. Not a lot of guys know about him, but they're going to find out. This kid is real good. He had a 5-for-5 game earlier this year where he had 3 bunt singles, a grand slam, and a double.
Wow.
So, yeah, and he stole 3 bases in the game. So the kid is electric. He is a playmaker if there ever was one in baseball. He plays second base for the Beavs. And then Garrett Forster is just the consummate baseball pro at first base there for us. 11, he's got 10 home runs. He's had great at-bats. He's the leading walk guy. This team is just built with a bunch of dudes that build off of each other. And that 1-2 punch to start off the top of the lineup with Travis Bazzana and Garrett Forster, that's something to look out for, especially for LSU fans.
Yeah, it's such a crazy thing. Our guy Ben McDonald, who calls all these games, he is always the one that's saying, they've done something to the baseball, right? And I think everybody's almost in a kind of agreement now. You go and look at the ERAs all over the country, and they just skyrocket, and it is just an offensive driven sport right now, which kind of makes it absolutely crazy what like Paul Skeens is doing this year, and like certain guys like that have been doing. The guys that have if you have under a 4 ERA, you're considered a top of the line starter these days. Who is that guy for Oregon State that's gonna light up the lamp on the mound?
So LSU is not going to see Trent Sellers. He's going to throw Friday against Sam Houston. So who they're probably going to see is our big reliever, Ben Ferrer, is probably going to get that Saturday start. Probably not a lot of people know about him, but he was an All-American last year with a great ERA. He had a lot of saves, and he came in a lot of huge situations. But he's been thrown as that starter role lately, trying to get used to this and getting up to 5-6 innings. Ben Ferrer is the guy you're going to look for. And a lot of people had him on the preseason All-American list this year. He started off the year with mono, so he couldn't play for like the first month there, so he had a hard time getting back. Once he got back, the guy is really good. He's a talent, big arm talent. 4 pitches for strikes. There's curveball, slider, changeup, and fastball. That's what LSU fans are going to see on that Saturday day when we meet them.
Yeah, for sure. Jay Johnson, man, he keeps everything tight to the vest. He don't give away no secrets. So, but based on what they did at the SEC tournament, I got a great feeling that you're going to see Thatcher Hurd on Friday night on Friday during the day
Yeah.
against Tulane, and then I think you're going to see Skeens on Oregon against the winner of Oregon State, Sam Houston, which I can't. People debate that, and it's definitely a risky move because you're playing a team. Yeah, they won 19 games this year, but I mean they're hot at the right time, and we've seen with any tournament of this size and this magnitude that all it takes is a team to get hot and a couple bounces go their way, and then you're battling your way out the losers bracket. It doesn't matter who you started on Friday night. So it's always a risk there, but I do got a feeling that if LSU does advance, well, no matter what, I think LSU is going to pitch Paul Skeens on that Saturday. But go ahead and tell some of these LSU fans about the head coach. A lot of people associate Oregon State with Pat Casey. Obviously, he's not there anymore. So give us a good insight of what's going on with the head man over there at Oregon State.
So Pat Casey is huge. He was great. He's still in the AD office. He still comes around the ballpark. He still loves baseball, loves to talk game with us. But really it comes down to Coach Canham. Mitch Canham was a starting catcher for 2 national championship teams. He made it in the big leagues for a little bit, and then he got hurt and ended up being a coach. So he jumped right into a manager role after he got hurt and stopped playing. And he was with the Mariners, and they were really high on him as a manager. When Oregon State decided that they were going to go out and find somebody, they took him, and they have not looked back, man. This kid has come in. He's been electric. He really believes in all the things Oregon State does. So he's an Oregon State product, and he believes in what Corvallis says. He knows how special it is. He goes out there and he just breathes it into these kids that he brings into this ballpark. People may not know, but Goss Stadium is the longest single-use baseball stadium in America. So it's been the longest single-use baseball stadium, same spot home plate's been in since like 1907. It's crazy to think about. But yes, and he just brings that where they show up and it's business. They have a good time, they have fun, but this showing up in Corvallis and playing for the Beavers means that you're ready for pro ball. That's what happens when you go there. And Mitch just brings it out, and guys, and he was, the Mariners were sad to lose him and not keep him and keep building him up to be a manager one day. But the Beavers were sure so happy to get him.
Yeah, it's that's kind of how the approach has been here at LSU. Obviously, getting a new coach here, you almost feel that sense of professionalism now with the program. Like, you can tell when Jay Johnson speaks that he is not just thinking for this year; he is thinking years in advance and building this into the program that it once was. And sustaining that success that teams like Oregon State have had. There shouldn't be any drop off any year. The down years should be like you're not hosting a regional type thing. And that's the kind of level of consistency I believe that LSU is going to start having. They had that run with Palmieri where they were a national seed 6 straight years. And it'll be nice to get to. It's starting to feel like you're getting the talent and the roster depth that you need to make that a accomplishment. As far as Oregon State's concerned, man, LSU fans are wild, right? I mean, this. You cover college baseball. LSU fans are wild. I mean, you talk about a number 1 team for 12 straight weeks, and I mean, we nitpick everything, right? Every little thing is a problem, and this is what's going to cost them the College World Series. It's like, guys, we got to get there first. But how college baseball fans and how I'm sure Oregon State fans are the same way. So what are kind of some of the, obviously Oregon State's a great baseball team. So what are some of the nitpicking things that maybe they've struggled with walks or, times where they haven't been hitting or something like that might run into a problem here in the postseason?
It's been kind of the same thing as LSU, right? It's the bullpen. And you look at this bullpen, and both of them have injuries in the arm department. And when you do that, you have a lot of guys that are younger that are coming up and throwing that probably weren't going to get as many opportunities. So you got a lot of young guys who've gotten a ton of innings. They're coming down to the end of their freshman season here where they were not supposed to throw this many times. And now they're out there and they're just kind of a little like, they're tired at the end of this season here. So they're going to get up and get going for this regional. But that's the nitpicky thing, is that the arms in the bullpen right now are a lot lessened to where they were at the beginning of the season. Same as LSU, they're missing so many arms in that bullpen that's what their problem is too. So both Oregon State and LSU have to look out for Friday, make sure they can get through that game, not burn through a ton of bullpen arms, and try to win those Friday night games and meet each other on Saturday with the full strength of that bullpen.
Yeah, absolutely. The LSU Achilles heel, you can argue, I'm a big believer in that. Jay Johnson preaches a lot and preached a lot preseason, where there's not too many teams that are going to beat you. It's kind of like LSU versus LSU out there.
Yep.
And if LSU plays an A+ game, there's not many teams in the country that can keep up. And I'm pretty confident in saying that.
Yep.
And I feel like that's how it is. Everybody, if they bring their A+ game, you can beat anybody on any day. That's just the crazy world of college baseball and baseball in general. And it's just even more magnified this year because you have so much parity in the sport now. But talking about Oregon State as a whole, coming into the season, I'm not sure about Oregon State, but I know LSU obviously came in with huge expectations. Was Oregon State considered like a younger team, like up and coming, or were they like have a lot of veterans and, it was just maybe going to take some time for them to get coagulated together? What were some of the preseason hype around this team, and like what were some of the expectations coming into this season?
So preseason, it was really looking more like a rebuild. And like you spoke earlier, teams like this don't really rebuild. And so you looked at it as more of a reload. And yes, there's a lot of young talent on this team that came in. The freshman class is tremendous. But you still had guys like Travis Pizzana hanging around. Still had guys like Garrett Forster who are here. Micah McDowell had the best season of his whole career at Oregon State this year. And that made a huge difference. Mason Guerra is a sophomore. The talent is very young for the Beavers. And this was more of a reloading year where they're going to see where they're at. I think they're a year earlier than where people thought, especially being in the top 15 in so many polls. A lot of the Beaver faithful, myself included, thought that this team would probably be lower down in the low 25s, and they really played really well in a lot of situations for being so young and so talented. But I think that this is a kind of a reloading year for them, and they were not really projected to be, nobody was projected to win the Pac-12 except for Stanford. UCLA was projected to do a lot better than they did. They didn't even make the tournament because they were so poor at the end of the season there. But Arizona was projected to do better than they did, and they struggled too. So Oregon State being where they were at the 18-12 in the Pac-12 play, winning 39 games was huge. Nobody really had them doing that this year. So it was a big step in saying that, Canham can recruit and he can get these guys playing good ball. And then Rich Dorman, the pitching coach, having so many freshmen throw. I think freshmen threw over 100 innings this year, which is just insane when you think about in Pac-12 ball. Any of the Power 5 conferences, you have freshmen that throw that much and you win. That's huge.
All right, man. So I'm gonna spare you. I'm gonna spare you from the LSU fans, and I'm not gonna make you predict who comes out of the Baton Rouge Regional. But I am, being that you cover college baseball nationwide and not just the
Yep.
West Coast, I gotta get your opinion. Ole Miss, we saw them last year, last team in, first last team in, last team out. Who is that team from any regional around the country that you just got your eyes on and you're just like, that could be the sleeper team this year?
Man, I really, really liked Maryland with the #1 offense and the way that they've been hitting the ball. I think they're going to give teams fits. I think that this is just a really bad matchup with Wake Forest, because Wake Forest is the most consistent team this year, right? The team that I think gets to Omaha with the easiest road really is Arkansas. I think that they have played the best ball at home, and they're so good at home. A team also to look out for, Tennessee. If they can get hitting, if they can get any offense going, that pitching is getting right at the right time. That pitching staff is all Omaha when you look at it, and that's all major leaguers. So if they can get a little bit of offense rolling, watch out for Tennessee.
Yeah, the only thing that concerns me about Tennessee is 5 wins on the road this year, which is
Yeah.
absolutely crazy to think about how they made it through an SEC schedule with only having 5 wins on the road and still managed to make the tournament, let alone be a 2 seed. So pretty impressive there. And they ended up winning the last series of the year at South Carolina, which is absolutely wild to think about the ups and
Yeah.
downs of that team. I mean, that team was a top 3 team, and now they're unranked, but somehow still get that RPI number again comes in. But I mean, South Carolina had you had to take in the full body of work, and I
Yeah.
understood the South Carolina again the regional thing because you do have so many wins against the top 8 teams. Like I mean, it's hard to ignore that kind of stuff. Um, but Campbell being sent to Carolina is a rough one for me. Um, I did like the Tennessee pick coming out of Clemson, but that one only like I'm like you, man. I'm like pitching wins championships, and Tennessee got the pitching. If they can get some timely hits, and that's what it's really all about these days is who can get the big hit win. And another team, I honestly think that Arkansas almost has a tougher regional than a majority of the top seeds. Like you were saying about Wake Forest, I feel like Arkansas, is playing teams at the wrong time too. But like you said, man, Arkansas is such a crazy environment.
Yeah.
That is not, and I mean, you think about like teams like Texas Tech going to Florida as a 3 seed, like teams like Boston College, they're pissed off because they didn't get a regional host site. They're going down to Alabama, who's red hot as well. So it's like you really almost have no idea what to expect. I'm a big after last year seeing that pitching staff with Southern Miss. LSU had to face them. They're another team that could easily run into Auburn and sit them down real quick and make a super regional. So I'm excited for this postseason. One of the most exciting postseasons I think it's going to be in a long time because like I said, you have literally no clue. Like I'm not even 100% confident that LSU is going to beat Tulane on Friday, and Tulane has a 19 win. We're sitting here talking about the worst team to ever make the NCAA tournament, and I couldn't tell you a team that was number one 12 weeks out of the year. I couldn't tell you with confidence that they were going to win this game. So it's like one of those crazy things, man. There's so many variables that go into this baseball thing, and it is literally the craziest sport on earth. Like you have no utter idea what team is going to show up to the ballpark, what days. Like you said, Wake Forest has been the most consistent team all year.
Yep.
That's probably the only example of a team that is just dominated from start to finish. Everybody thought LSU was going to be that team. They hit the hiccup right there at the end of the year. You have a team like Arkansas, they ended up getting swept by Georgia. Like, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's just such an up and down year. If I had to put my money on it, and these LSU people are going to kill me for this, but I would, if I had to put my hard earned money on a College World Series champion right now, I'd have to look at the Florida Gators. That pitching staff is just no joke, and they have some of the best hitters in the country. Wyatt Langford, Josh Rivera, Jack Caglione. I mean, those three alone would stomp any lineup. But I mean, I was so mad because I really wanted to play them in the SEC tournament. Like that was the biggest thing about us losing in the SEC tournament was like I wanted my hands on Florida because I felt like LSU and Florida were the two best teams in the SEC this year. Arkansas obviously right there as well, but LSU beating them head to head. I kind of figured like that LSU Florida matchup rivalry from the 2017 rematch. I filled out my bracket on D1, and that's who I had was Florida LSU in the finals again. And it'd be tough for me to think that the Gators wouldn't come away victorious again because they are so deep, and it's one of those tournaments that's going to be wild.
Yeah, my one question, I love Florida. Their starting rotation is one of the best in the country. They're right there with the Wake Forest and Vanderbilts of the world. My question is that bullpen is so suspect. Like they can get beat up. So if Caglione can't go deep on that third day, if Sproat or Waldrop get hit around a little bit and they have to get in that bullpen early, the backside of that bullpen's fine, but the middle of that bullpen, if they have to go into those guys, that Florida bullpen cannot keep people off the board, and that's how Florida can lose. That's the only way right now because their starting three are elite, and they're really good on the front end, and they have enough offense to really compete with anybody. But if Sproat and Waldrop have a hard time, if either one of them has a hard time, that's where you're gonna have to see Caglione's gonna have to step up and throw 6-7 innings so that they don't have to use too much bullpen.
And I'm sitting here tooting that Florida horn, and it's like, the South Carolina wins that regional. I mean, South Carolina swept Florida in the regular season, so it's like, who knows what's going to happen when we get all said and done. Like I said, man, I'm so looking forward to this weekend, man. To me, this is the March Madness. This is my March Madness. I'm a big baseball guy, so opening
Agreed.
day of the postseason is just an unbelievable event. I hope that the sport continues to grow and it reaches every corner. I'm actually hoping one of the big things nationally that happens is they move the schedule back. The Iowa coach brought it up at the Round Rock tournament this year about the northern teams, not being able to play for the first month and a half of the season, and I think that's crazy. I think it would
Yeah.
help them in recruiting if they could just push it back maybe even a month. If it was just you start in March instead of February, push everything back a month. I mean, that gives those teams so much more opportunities to get people in their ballparks and experience what it's like up there. Because I can tell you from a SEC fan, if I didn't know about college baseball deeply and rooted, but it's like, these teams up north don't get any exposure. Like, they're not the ones playing on the SEC network every Friday and Saturday night, so it's like you only get to see those teams maybe in the postseason. And so it's like, it's a shame that those programs are so good up there, but they don't get the exposure that some of these other teams do, including the teams on the West Coast. The West Coast
Yeah.
has been predominantly known for their baseball as well. So they get a lot of airtime as well compared to those teams up north. But every year there's one of those teams that arises and they come and shock the world. So I always root for those guys when they're not playing LSU, of course. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this postseason for sure.
Oh, there's so much excitement going on there. And I mean, yeah, like you said, it's tough when the West Coast, like Stanford, starts a game at 7. That's 10 o'clock East Coast time. They're not staying up and watching that whole game. They're not waiting until 1, 2 in the morning until that game's over. So,
Exactly.
and then when you got to wait until, March, end of March before you even have a home game, it makes it really tough. So having those teams up north, giving them a little bit of a break, I'd be fine with pushing it back 3 weeks and starting the first week of March. But I think college baseball just won't do it because then that pushes the postseason all the way back into July.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that got to get worked out, and that the draft, is always a big concern for. They finally got the draft to where it's not during
They
the
pushed it
season,
back.
and then they're gonna push it back. Yeah, so it's kind of a love-hate relationship with all the rules and stuff that's going on. But man, I appreciate you so much. It's been a great conversation, not just about Oregon State and LSU, but about college baseball in a whole. And I know if you're like me, you're super excited about this weekend. And if you guys haven't already, man, make sure you guys go check out some of the content that my man Mark is producing. I will have the link in my bio on YouTube to make sure you go check it out. Check out this podcast. Is there anything else you want to bring up, man, before I let you go?
No, I'm just hoping both LSU and Oregon State win on Friday so we can meet each other on Saturday. I know I got lots of my followers and colleagues are really excited for that Saturday. I'm really hoping Oregon State can beat Sam Houston and LSU takes care of business at 2 o'clock against Tulane. So just go Beavs. Excited for college baseball. That's the best time of the year, man. This is Christmas.
Yeah, man, there's no doubt about that, man. It's Christmas in June, but yeah, man, I'm gonna go ahead and let you go, man. Like I said, it was great
Thanks
talking
for
with
having me.
you,
Yeah, man, this was awesome.
and
Anytime, anytime.
absolutely, man. You take care.
All right.